What up friends, I'm James, your host, and today I'm going to be reviewing the new Loona mini album, XX. Loona is a South Korean girl group that formed in 2016, although only made their debut in 2017 as subunits. There's 12 members to this group. It's a full ensemble of people, so it makes sense that they debuted that way. They basically debuted with one of the members doing a song per month. Fittingly enough, chances are you've heard the name even if you haven't heard the group, and that's because the whole scene surrounding Loona kind of just festers underneath every area online, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. They're dedicated. I appreciate that. But yeah, you've definitely heard of them before if you've ever spent a minute on any sort of thing like Twitter or Instagram or anything of the sort. Their first full group debut was back in 2018 with their first mini album Plus Plus, and now in 2019 with XX. Now, there is a bit of a discrepancy here because the physical version of XX is actually a repackage of both. They combine the two mini albums. However, I'm just going to be reviewing XX as its own project. I'm not going to be reviewing the songs that were on Plus Plus originally. I'm going to treat them as separate entities. The album begins with XX, the intro track. It's very nice and delicate. It has some smooth synths and kind of a funky outro as well. It's a good tone setter for the rest of the mini album. Next we have the song Butterfly, the lead single from this mini album as a matter of fact. The very smooth keys mixed with the hollow beat give it a very interesting sound that I do actually quite enjoy. There's some fun vocal inflections on the pre-chorus, and the chorus itself is actually pretty interesting. It's largely vocalless, letting the instrumental kind of take the lead, which I thought was a pretty risky maneuver for such a vocal-driven group, it seems, but I think they pulled it off. The song also gets a bit more funky at the end with a larger bass presence. It's a good callback to the intro, actually, so I did like that. The distorted vocals add a light and airy sound to the entire track. It gives the song a very full sound, and I always enjoy that. There's a place for the hollowness, but overall I do really enjoy how just kind of cumulative this song feels, with every sort of element of the song just kind of building up. Also, the lyrics on this track are a bit more metaphorical and abstract compared to a lot of the other K-pop songs that I listen to, at least from this genre of K-pop, so that was pretty welcome, and it paints a pretty vivid picture with all the butterfly references and things like that. It's fitting to the name, and I really enjoyed the lyrical aspect to this song as well. Satellite has a very skeletal and electronic beat that kind of builds as the song progresses. It almost gives me a bit of a Casio vibe, and I always like that sort of sound. It's a bit of a throwback electronic beat, and it's fun. It's fun. Fittingly enough, the track also has a very space-like feel with varying tempos and a very relaxing and dreamlike atmosphere. The mini rap segment also flows with the instrumental pretty well. It doesn't stand out as being out of place or anything like that, and this song is also probably one of the best vocally on the entire mini album too. Lyrically, compared to Butterfly, it's a bit more vague, it's a bit more basic, although I do think the chorus has some pretty clever lyrics comparing love to satellites and planets and things like that. Not the most unique thing, but it still gets the job done. Curiosity is probably the one song that I can say is a bit weaker than the others. It starts off with some kinda generic vocal samples as well as a fairly uninspired trap beat, although the song does get better as it goes along. I do like the synth line, and I do like the bass throughout the track after we get through the kind of generic intro. The chorus itself is fairly catchy, kind of blends all of the elements of the song together pretty nicely. I do think lyrically it's a bit lackluster. It's just talking about kind of they're curious on where their relationship stands. So it's kind of your standard love fare. Nothing too stand out about it, nothing awful, but it's compared to songs like Butterfly that has some pretty cool lyrics and a pretty cool way of actually telling them, it just kind of felt like a bit of a disappointment. Although there is some clever wordplay here and there. Colors, however, is a pretty cool track. It has a very nice and serene tone with these little chimes that are kind of billowing throughout the entire song, and the bass line really helps bring them to the forefront as well. It's a good complement to those chimes. The structure of the instrumental on this track is also a bit weird. There's very little presence of a main beat. Instead, the synth and the bass kind of take up that job. It's a very interesting way of structuring the song, I have to say. And it also helps bring the vocals up to the front as well. I really do think it's also one of the best tracks vocally on the mini album. I do have to say, the drop is a bit uninspired and unfitting with the rest of the song. It just kind of comes in out of nowhere and bears very little resemblance to the instrumentals that were established previously. But again, I do like how the vocals are at the forefront here, and they actually managed to make a more EDM-inspired track a bit subtle and actually kind of work within the context of the album. So they did a pretty good job on that front. I also do like how they compare love and feelings to different colors. I think that's a fairly interesting concept that not too many groups are doing, at least. And the album ends with Where You At, and honestly, this is probably what I think is the best song on the record. It has a fairly simplistic beat, but it's also a bit more natural. It provides a good contrast to what was previously very electronic on the rest of the songs on the mini album. The chorus is probably the best moment on this entire record. The vocal melodies are really nice, and I love how the synth is just pushing them even further. It's propelling them into new heights that I think is pretty amazing, honestly. It's a more down-tempo song, but it still manages to be so catchy and uplifting and smooth, and it's probably one of the best examples of what you can do with the sound that they're going for, while also not making it too generic, but it still has that very approachable vibe to it as well. And while the lyrics don't offer anything too unique about kind of pining for an old lover and things like that, they are delivered with a lot of passion, and they are very heartfelt too, so I think they work well within the context of the song. It's not necessarily trying to do anything too flashy or unique, but it knows what it does, and it does it well. Overall, I thought this was a pretty good and consistent project. Nothing stands out as being out of place or anything like that. There are some instances of some generic pop influences and a lot of the more trendy sounds that are coming out of Korea right now, but overall I do have to say it has more of an identity than a lot of their contemporaries, at least in their specific genre of K-pop. One thing that kinda doesn't gel with me is with so many members, I have a hard time getting familiar with each of the members' strengths, although that might be kind of the point. Like I said at the start, they're kind of treated more as an ensemble rather than an individual group. I tend to prefer groups where each member has a specific role and there's only like 4 or 5 of them, but I understand that that's probably not what they were going for here, and they do pull off the ensemble look quite well. Overall, this was a pretty nice and accessible album. Loona know what they do, and they don't take too many risks, but the risks that they do take are pulled off pretty nicely, and I do think it works out for the album as a whole. And I would just kind of like to see them refine this sound in the future. They already have their identity. I think they just need to work on making it a bit more unique and maybe kind of putting more oomph in the instrumentals a little bit to kind of complement their voices. But overall, I thought this was pretty consistent and pretty good. I am feeling a decent strong 6 on Loona XX, and that's that. Now, of course, I do have to talk about the album cover, and I actually quite like the album cover quite a bit. It showcases all the members in the circle, and I do like the very light sky blue background. The butterfly wings obviously fit towards the lead single of the track, and the light blue really fits the airiness and space-like atmosphere of the entire mini album. I thought the only main colors other than the light blue being on the butterfly wings and all that was pretty cool. The logo, I think, might have wanted to be a different color other than black, but overall, it was a pretty nice project and a pretty nice cover. Anyway, that is my opinion on Loona XX, the mini album from the internet sensation themselves. That was a sentence. But what did you think about Loona XX? Did you listen to it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you not like it? Did you not love it? Who knows? I don't know your opinion. That's why you have to tell me in the comments down below. But that being said, until the next one, I will see you then. Farewell.